Hello, hello. All right. Come on up closer. We got a few seats left still here up in the front. Don't be shy. Good afternoon. I just want to welcome everybody on behalf of Republic Records and our founders, Monty and Avery Lipman, who were out in LA getting honored by Muse Expo this week and unable to be here. We're going to have a wonderful discussion tonight with John Mellencamp. I want to thank the Macintosh Group for partnering with Republic on another Direct Connection series and hosting us here at this gorgeous townhouse, the World of Macintosh. I want to thank Absolute Vodka for sponsoring tonight's cocktails, and Billboard Magazine they are live streaming this event tonight. So say hello to the internet, everyone. Tonight I have here to moderate our event Elysa Gardner. Elysa, please welcome her. Elysa is a former theater and music critic for USA Today and has contributed to the New York Times, The New Yorker, Rolling Stone, and Entertainment Weekly. In addition, this year she chaired the jury for the Pulitzer Prize in Drama. And now on to our featured guest. This past Friday, our artist here released his newest album, Sad Clowns and Hillbillies, his 23rd studio album. And NPR recently said, Mellencamp delivers the songs on Sad Clowns and Hillbillies in a soulful rasp, alternately suggestive of Tom Waits and latter-day Bob Dylan. Thank you, NPR. Johnny Cash once called Mellencamp one of the 10 best songwriters in history. And tonight, Carlene Carter is here, who's also featured on Sad Clowns and Hillbillies. Please welcome Carlene. We've got a bit of Cash Carter family royalty here with us. John and Carlene will be heading out on tour this summer nationally with special guest Emmylou Harris, and that'll kick off on June 5th. And they'll be right down the road here at Forest Hills Stadium in Flushing Meadows on July 11th. So if you haven't got tickets, please ask one of us or get them at Ticketmaster. And next up, I just want to say that it is my pleasure to introduce to you a legend, a man I've grown very fond of and very proud to have worked with over the last couple album campaigns and much longer than that in my career as well. Please welcome Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee and Grammy Award winner, John Mellencamp.
You're better with these than I am, so I may need a little help.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. It's an honor to be here.
Closer.
Sorry?
Move your mic closer.
Oh, it's closer. Okay.
There you go.
All right, that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, you have more experience with this. Well, we're all here to talk about John's new album, Sad Clowns and Hillbillies, which is a wonderful album. It started as a gospel, is that right? That the concept originally was to do a gospel album with Carlene Carter.
Yeah, it was everything that Carlene and I have done together has been very organic. You know, it's just there wasn't any. I've never planned anything in my life. So I walked off the side of the stage one night. We did like 130 shows together, and she was in the wings. And I said, "Hey, Carlene, we should make a record together." And she goes, "Okay." That's pretty much how it started. And then the next night was like, "Well, what kind of record you want to make?" "I don't know. Let's make an old-time gospel record." "Okay." So, and then it just kind of went from there. And then we started writing songs, and she wrote a couple gospel songs, and I didn't. So the record changed direction. So that's how it started.
Yeah. But it does, I mean, the songs do have a very, and I don't use this word in a new agey way, but a spiritual feel. And they address issues that are very timely. And it kind of made me think about how your songs have always spoken to people who I think we now think of as dismissed. You know, I think the last election was a lot about that. And though I'd say your own politics are pretty progressive. You represent people with dignity, people who are not always presented that way. And this album very much reminded me of that.
Well, the first time I met Obama was at a Farm Aid, and he was a junior senator, and he was there by himself. And him and I were talking, and he was telling me some of the stuff that he thought. And I said to him, I said, well, I don't know, man, you just don't seem liberal enough for me. And, you know, I don't think he ever forgot that. Because, you know, every time he looked at me, you know, I did some things for him when he was running for president the first and second time. And I always kind of felt like he resented me saying that to him. But that's the way I felt, that, you know me, I'll say anything.
Well, the album also deals with racism specifically. Easy Target, you know, came to you very quickly from what I understand.
Well, I've written about race for years.
Yes, you have.
Originally, Jack and Diane were was an interracial relationship. Jack was black, and he wasn't a football star, he was black. He was an African American. They said so in the song. And the record company came down, and like when I made that record, I was a kid in 1981, they said, I don't know about saying that. And so it was kind of an argument, and then I relented and said, okay, well, so change him to a football star. But yeah, I think I was the first guy to have interracial people on MTV. They weren't even playing Michael Jackson yet, and I made they might have been playing Jackson, but that was it. I made a video called, I can't remember, Cherry Bomb. And there was a black guy dancing with a white girl, and boy, that pissed a lot of people off. I got letters from the Klan. I was in Paris, and I got a letter. Randy brought me a letter from the Klan in Atlanta. It said, at Mellencamp, if, you know, we like you, but if you keep having these N-words in your videos, you will see us in Atlanta. So I immediately shot off another letter back to them and went, I guess I'll see you in Atlanta, fucker. So that was pretty much it. But guess what? We never saw them. So their bark was a lot bigger than their bite. At least it is today. I don't think it was 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. But today, they're just a bunch of loudmouths.
You also actually kind of co-wrote a song posthumously with Woody Guthrie on this album, who was an inspiration for you. Yeah,
I don't know, 10 years ago, Nora Guthrie called me up, and who is, you don't know, that's Woody's daughter, and she asked me if I wanted to accept the Woody Guthrie Award, and of course, who wouldn't? So I said yes, and ever since then, her and I have been very friendly, and she's always saying, you know, let me send you some of Woody's poetry and see if you can turn it into a song. And I said, didn't somebody else just make a whole album of that? You know, that's when that all started. I think the guys from Chicago, I can't remember the name of the band. Wilco, that's right. And the English singer, I can't remember his name either. Billy Bragg. Thank you. Anyway, they made an awfully good record using his poetry. And I kind of thought, well, I don't know, you know, that's already been done. But she's very persistent, so she sent me 4 or 5 poems, and I don't know, it took about, 6 minutes to put that together.
Yeah.
So it just came real quick. I was walking out we were making the record, and I hadn't written the music yet, and I was walking out to the rehearsal room, which is right next to my studio. And I didn't even make it to the rehearsal room. I just turned right around and played it, and we went in and recorded. That's how long it took. So I think we did like 2 takes, and that was it.
Aside from, do you think Yeah, I think you've mentioned that Woody Guthrie would not have been something along the lines of, he couldn't have had a career today, or...
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's not pop music, obviously, but you managed to forge a career, as a showman and be socially conscious in your lyrics at the same time.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, we all grew up in, at least people, boomers all grew up in a different time. Music was everything to us. I don't think it is so much anymore to young people. I've got two boys, 22 and 21, and I don't think they've ever sat down and listened to an whole album in their whole life. They just, they like songs. They like a song. And so, I don't know, I read just the other day where, I think it was Ray Davies saying rock and roll's going to come back. It's not going to come back. We've seen it. It's happened. I'd like to be when these guys go, yeah, it's going to come back. It's not going to come back. It's like we had a 50-year run of a particular type of music, and history will tell us that, I'll give you guys a good example. Before rock and roll, there was big band music, and it was as popular as rock and roll. People loved it. They were jitterbugging in Harlem to it. Everybody, every kid, every adult knew Glenn Miller. Everybody knew, this one, that one, this one, that one. Okay, here's a little test for you. Name 4 of those bands. And then if you can really name 4, then hum me one of their songs. They were as popular as rock and roll. Things have a lifespan, and then it goes away. And I've been saying for years, the further we've got away from the original rock music, the worse it's gotten. I hate to sound like a cranky old man, but I am. The further we get away, the worse it gets. Now, I'm not saying there's still not great songwriters out there. There are. But we're never going to experience them in the way that we were able to experience them in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's just, we're not set up for that anymore. I mean, when I first started making records, there was no MTV. Guys in rock bands were little pictures on albums, and every now and then you'd hear them on the radio. And then MTV came along and catapulted it to the world. And rock became so much bigger than it ever would have without, MTV was a huge thing. I hated it myself because I didn't want to make those videos. But, we had to, it became part of the thing. So rock has really morphed and changed, and, it's so far away from what it started to be. It's just so far away that I don't believe we can find our way back. Plus, there's no business model to get it back. What, streaming? You really think that's going to really catapult a 22-year-old songwriter into national spotlight? Look at me. I mean, I'm a fucking average songwriter, average singer, but I was at the right place at the right time. There were other guys like me, who were average at best. But because we had a look, or we were at the right place at the right time, catapulted into this huge arena. Where is that arena today? It doesn't exist. Where is that arena? So, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but I have an opinion on everything.
Well,
it doesn't make it right or the truth. It just makes it my opinion.
Well,
and I'm allowed to have one.
Well, let's bring it to a slightly lighter note. I want to talk about the title track of this album, which is kind of self-deprecating, I would say.
Well, you're talking about Sad Clowns.
Yes, yes.
Well, Sad Clowns is like, I did, when I was a kid, I did probably 150 shows with Ray Davies and the Kinks. I was their opening act for years. It was like, is this tour ever going to end, But I learned a lot from Ray. I didn't like Ray at the time because he was kind of mean and cranky and but every night I'd watch him on stage and I'd listen to his lyrics, and so I learned a lot from Ray. back then. And Sad Clowns is a Ray Davies song, basically, because it's like, he had a song called, lays it on a Sunday, the tax man's taking all my dough, left me here in my stately home. You guys remember that song? Lays in on, and he talks about his girlfriend talking to her parents about drunkenness and cruelty to her. Well, he's talking about himself. So I just picked the worst part of me and put it in the song, No, I don't open doors for women. No, I don't do this. And it's like a tongue-in-cheek, Ray Davies, I can't quit him. I mean, what do you say?
On the other hand, you get into some pretty heavy stuff, not just politically, but really with mortality. Early Bird Cafe is a song I admit I hadn't heard before. I'm embarrassed to admit.
Well, you shouldn't be embarrassed to admit. Nobody's heard it before except me and the guy that wrote it. I saw a band when I was a teenager. I went to see Frank Zappa and the Mothers at a place called Middle Earth in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the opening act was a band called Jerry Hahn Brotherhood. And they were just a bunch of hippies, real long hair and no show, no presentation. Just guys just kind of walked out and started playing, which I appreciated. Wasn't much into the big light shows and bombs and stuff. But anyway, they did 2 or 3 songs that I just went, wow, these songs are great. And so I went and bought the record, and I was a hippie once upon a time. I had hair down to here, and it was 1969, 1970, barefoot with a guitar. And you people that are old enough probably remember, but you young people don't remember, but people used to have parties, and you would pass the guitar around, and all the guys would play a song. So whenever the guitar came my way, I always played Early Bird Cafe, and then acted like I wrote it. So in my mind, finally, I did write it. It's my song. Because I would go places and go, hey, John, play that Early Bird Cafe song. Okay. So people just assumed I wrote it because, like you, they had never heard the record.
Yeah.
So that song really became mine more than the guy that wrote it or Jerry Hahn Brotherhood, 40 years ago. I've been playing it for 40 years, so we're making this record, and I just finally, because the guys in the band have heard me play it 100 times, I said, let's just cut Early Bird Cafe.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And I love the last line, the last part of it, where she says, well, she'd asked me where I'd been, and I said I was hung up with some beggar in the sky. And I thought that was a beautiful line. I was hung up with God. I was trying to find God, is what he's saying. I guess you guys figured that out, right? I was hung up with some beggar in disguise. And she laughed like temple bells and kissed me on the cheek and said, it's hard to be alive sometimes, but it's easy to be dead. And I just related to that. And it just meant, to me, it just meant, man, you got to go out and live, 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 and live. And if you're not doing that, you're dying. So that's song, I related to that song ever since I was like 17 years old.
Well, it was a first for me. I want to
You're a
talk
child.
About, right.
What did you
Very
expect?
kind of you. Very kind of you. I do want to talk about what kind of.
I have to tell you something. Can I interrupt you for a second?
I'm not sure.
I met her, 20 years ago?
Maybe more.
I was her first interview at Rolling Stone magazine.
I was a prodigy. I was like 12.
Yeah, she was like.
I was younger than Cameron Crowe, actually.
She was definitely green behind the ears because she thought I was going to be a nice guy.
And you were.
Fooled you.
You were very polite and gracious, I have to say. That's how I remember it anyway. It was a long time ago. But I do want to talk about Ghost Brothers because, that's actually What Kind of Man Am I, which is from Ghost Brothers, which is on the album. And that's kind of how you and Carlene Carter, though you had known each other before that, you connected through that. Is that right? And then started touring together?
Well, can I address the song, What Kind of Man Am I? I'll address it shortly, and then I'll go on to me and Carlene, if that's
Sure,
okay.
that's perfect, yeah.
This is a fallacy that so many people have, and these songs that we all love, they're not really about the guy that wrote them. I get so perturbed when people ask me, like, what kind of man am I? I've done a few interviews where they think I wrote that song about me. It's not about me. It's about a character in a play. But it just goes on and on and on. I've made, 20, I don't know how many albums I've made, a lot. Do you really think that I'm interesting enough to write all those songs about one guy? I'm just not that interesting. If I had to just draw on me, it'd be a thin little book. An artist, true poetry comes from observation, experience, a filter, and initiative, drive. It's not about the artist. It's about the artist filtering through his eyes, what he sees, what he experiences, what he doesn't think. It's all bullshit. The idea that these songs are about me or about the Rolling Stones or about Bob Dylan. I've talked to Dylan about songwriting, and we both laugh at the idea that these songs are about us. They're not. They're observations that go through a filter, that go through, then for somehow we're able to connect those things. And luckily for me, I've written a couple songs that connected with you guys. And it really is frustrating. If you watch Streetcar Named Desire, Tennessee Williams was not Stanley Kowalski, if you're familiar with that work at all. It's observation. He knew people like Stanley Kowalski. Larry McMurtry and I made a movie together. Larry McMurtry is one of the best book writers in America. He's an old man now. But we were talking about A Horseman Passed By, which was a book that he wrote. It was his college thesis, actually, that got turned into a movie called HUD. That is his uncle, that character HUD. It's not Larry. It's the observation. And I was always much more inspired by American authors than I were American singer-songwriters, because there's just not been that many good ones. There's been a half a dozen, guys that just came out of the box, were great songwriters. Elvis Costello was great the minute he came out. Bob Dylan was great. Well, Bob, he had a bumpy start. I mean, he was doing cover songs, his first couple, 3 albums. The Rolling Stones were doing cover songs, couple, 3 albums. People forget that. It takes time. And I grew up in public, learning how to write songs. And, at 65 years old, I now have a muse that just sends them to me, And my songs, some of them have been pretty good, and I see Bill Flanagan sitting there, and I remember talking to Bill many years ago, and he said to me, he goes, well, John, I like your songs, but I don't love them. And no, but Bill, my point, let me make my point. My point is that he taught me a very important lesson, because I know exactly how he felt. I liked this band, this band, this band, this band, this band, this songwriter, this song, that songwriter, but I didn't love them. I didn't not like them, but they weren't my favorite guys. So when he said that to me, I thought, he's right. I've got to raise the bar on my songwriting and not settle for something that is less than undeniable. So by that one little saying from Bill that afternoon, raised the bar for me, for myself, because he was right. Those songs were okay, and there were some good ones, but it was always uneven. So anyway, there was another part to this question. I just wanted to drag you through the mud for a second, Bill.
Well, Bill was an inspiration to me as a journalist, so we share that.
Well, good.
But
Well, wait a minute, I'm going to leave and let Bill talk.
well, we were talking about, it's funny because the concept of storytelling is something that you're talking about, which you share with Carlene Carter, and which is rich in country and rock and musical theater. And actually comes from your love of writing as well, clearly, of authors like Williams and John Steinbeck, I think. Is that right?
I'm lost.
Oh,
Say that again.
No, I'm just saying that being a singer-songwriter is being a storyteller.
Yeah.
And,
It's just you're just telling the story. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
And you don't have to be the main player in the story.
Yeah.
You don't have to, to talk about one of my earlier songs that I wrote. I didn't. There was no Jack and Diane. I made those people up.
Yeah.
It's called imagination. Use your imagination.
Yeah.
If you're just going to look at yourself and write songs about yourself, you're not going to have much to write about, because nobody is that interesting. They're just not.
Yeah. Well, narrative songwriting is something you obviously tap into, and that's something you must have discussed with Carlene Carter as well. Do you want to?
Carlene,
her on?
I really couldn't say anything to Carlene about songwriting. She's a better songwriter than I am. So, what am I going to tell her that she doesn't already know?
Should we bring her up?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Yay.
Here, babe, you sit here.
Hi, y'all.
Do you want to share the mic?
Sure.
Or we have another one. Fantastic.
Move my hand right there.
Yeah, move your hand. Leave your hand there.
Yeah, I am.
I wouldn't let you wear that dress.
I know
We
he
should have
had
a hand for
something to say, but it'd be
Carlene's
too
dress.
late. I would have already had it on stage, and then he would have said something.
Well, how long did you two know each other before you started working together?
We started working together. Well, I consider that I knew John. We passed each other in hallways and this and that, but mainly we sat down and had a conversation, and I felt like we got to know each other, and that's pretty much how it went for me. What about you?
I don't remember.
He doesn't remember. And so it's very memorable.
No, I don't remember. I had this story completely different than Carlene. I thought we met on the stage at Ghost Brothers, but she corrected me. And
No, yeah, I don't like to correct him because it could get me in trouble, but he called me up, actually Randy called me up and said, John wants you to come and sing on a song that he's written for the film Ithaca that Meg Ryan had just directed, and he was doing the soundtrack to it. So I jumped on a plane after playing in San Francisco and came to Indiana and went to the studio, and John came in, and I can say we were pretty much instant friends. We had a great afternoon of getting to know each other and fun in the studio, and then he said, are you excited about next year? And I said, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I'm always excited, y'all. And so he said, no, are you excited about going on tour with me? And by that point, you'd invited me to be on your tour. And then you asked me to do Ghost Brothers before the tour.
Is that the way it went?
That's the way it went. Because
I thought-
I've got a mind like a steel trap. I remember everything you've ever said to me.
Oh, shit. Ooh. Well, don't repeat it here.
I won't, no. No, I don't.
Don't repeat it here.
Yeah.
We're trying to make a good impression, Carl.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're a good team.
And then the idea of writing songs together or making an album of songs together came about after you toured, did another tour together.
Well, there was a really joyful thing for me to sing with John because, for one thing, he'd been the soundtrack to a lot of my life, and as he has a lot of people. And so I had a great respect for him as a writer and as a performer. And I dug his music, but I also liked him, and I wouldn't go into a project wanting to work with somebody that I didn't like. And that's pretty much been my rule of thumb, and it's served me pretty well throughout the years. I've made a few mistakes. I picked the wrong one, but that's marriage. That doesn't count. And in this situation. But anyway, it was very easy, you know, and it was a joyful experience to me to sing with him. And we had so much fun doing it. So I you know, at the suggestion of making a record, I was thrilled and excited and inspired. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I don't even know if you know this, John, but when he asked me to do this tour with him, I thought I would need a band to go out and open to these rock audiences and stuff. And he said, no, I just want you by yourself. And it made me have to become a better musician to go out there and open for John Mellencamp and the greatest rock band on earth, and by myself. And so I just went out there and picked that guitar the best of my ability. And so before that, it was a challenge. And, you know, at my age, you don't always get challenged. You know, people don't always, like, want to push your envelope for you. And it's like I'm always game at that. I'll rise to the occasion. So thank you, buddy.
She, her and I have never had a crossword. Never, not even close.
No.
No.
Which
And it's her, it's not me, because I am a curmudgeon. There's no question about it. But she can tolerate a curmudgeon. So, but we've never really had a crossword, and she's right. It's, you know, it's nice to work with people when it's pleasurable. When you look forward to seeing somebody every night, as opposed to going, fuck, I don't want to see that guy tonight.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of my attitude a lot with people.
It's a pretty intimate experience sharing a microphone and singing songs that you both have a connection to in some way. And I find a bit of myself in every song that I ever listen to, and particularly when I'm singing it with somebody that I respect their writing too. It's like I put myself in the song, and that's how I've always been. And it's been like that since I was a little girl listening to the radio. You know, I'm a character in the thing.
And that's what songwriting's supposed to do. That's,
yeah.
You know,
that's take you out of it.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's why it can't be so specific. You have to keep your songs vague. You can't be so specific that you're talking about specific things, because if you do, then you're excluding the audience. Because quite frankly, nobody gives a shit about what I think. You know, why would you care about what I think? It's what you think that is important, and it's the experience that the listener has that's important, not my experience of writing. You know, how I feel about easy targets or something. Hopefully, I spoke for people who, you know, don't have a big as mouth as me, you know, so that's how I look at that. But it's supposed to be, you know, you're making records for yourself because we like doing it. We have to do it. But then it goes to the public, and then the public is if you can touch people, if you can reach it, if you can make people feel like Carlene said she felt, this song's about me. And then that's a real success story.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about us working live together is that I get to go out and welcome the audience and make them feel like they're in our living room for the night.
Yeah, and she does a good job.
And that's what, and you know, that's what how I've always approached being an artist and being an entertainer, is that I want people to feel like, you know, I'm the same person right now sitting here as the person that's going to come out and say hi to y'all later. And John is who he is, you know, and I am too. And I think that works well for us.
Yeah.
And that's probably our commonality in a lot of ways.
Yeah, what you see is what you get.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. And performing is obviously, as you both know, that's an art in itself, taking the songs to another level and living them in front of your fans and connecting with your fans. And I know you're both great performers. John, your band is super tight. You know, I notice a meticulousness when you perform. Like, I remember once James Brown said something like, all of his band members had to have their pants pressed perfectly when they performed. Is that kind of...
Yeah, you work for me, you know. Mike, my guitar player, who's been in the band for like, I don't know, 45 years or something, refers to me as the benevolent dictator. And that's what it is. I mean, you know, I decided real early that I was not going to be a member of a band because, you know, 4 guys sitting around talking about, you know, what's right and wrong. Nah. You guys want to hear what I say the guys in my band? Here's what I say. There's only room for one asshole in this band, and you're looking at him. You're looking right at him. Let's not forget that. We don't have time for your ego and your, we want your thoughts and your creativity and to play at your best ability. And that's, I have always had one of the best bands, always. We don't always get the recognition we should, but we've always been one of the tightest, best bands ever.
Absolutely.
And you're hitting the road again very soon, a few weeks, right?
Yeah. When is it?
It's June 5th, I think, is our first date at Fiddler's Green in Denver.
Yep.
That's the only date I know. That one and the last one in July in New York.
Right.
That I know off the top of my head. I know where I'm going usually on the day that we go there.
I usually don't know that. But.
Well, your voices on the album were described by one critic I read as like honey over beef jerky, which...
Well, I have to tell you, the first time that I heard our voices together, remember we were in Steve King's living room? And she was trying to learn a song that I wrote, and sometimes my phrasing's funny, and I was helping her with her phrasing, and we started singing together, and as soon as our voices connected, it was like, whoa, that's a nice sound.
It's really natural,
Yeah.
It's like when it's hard to sing with someone when you're always trying to match them, we just seem to go where we go. It's not like pulling teeth. And there's a nice, it's very organic, as the word's getting thrown around a lot tonight. It really is.
Yeah.
I think so. Fun, and we giggle and have fun on stage, and we have a lot of our conversations on stage during instrumentals.
Yeah.
Yeah. This album was kind of born from coming off stage, and he goes, "Hey, wait a minute, I got this idea," and that's how we started it.
Yep.
Cool. And off stage, I'm sure that you have to have a great rapport to write songs together, and so I'm sure that continues.
Well, you have to be really open to suggestions when you are collaborating, And I love the art of songwriting, and I love the art of collaboration, because of that in itself is.
Tell them the story about what your mom said when you said you couldn't write a song.
She said, "Okay, I'm going to do June now for y'all." So my mom told me when I was young, and I just started like playing my guitar and singing and wanting to be like Linda Ronstadt, and that was my dream. I wanted to wear a mini skirt, which I'm doing, and have a tambourine and sing Silver Threads and Golden Needles, and I was going to be happening. Anyway, Mama said, "Well, you look pretty good. You look kind of cute, and you sound all right when you sing. But what you really need to do, honey, is you need to learn how to write a song. You see, if you could just write one simple little song, kind of like the one that I wrote for Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, it could change your life." So that was it, and I tell the audience that every night, because it was the most pivotal part of the direction I was going in my life was to just sit down and try and write a song. And I was studying classical music, and so the first song that I ever wrote, I took a chord progression from Tchaikovsky. Go figure. I'm a country girl from Hendersonville, Tennessee, y'all. And that's how I started. And then I became obsessed and with the craft of it. And it really is just like, there's no rules. That was another thing that my mom told me. There are no rules. You don't have to rhyme. It doesn't matter. Just say what you want to say. And I just thought, how cool is that? So I've had a love affair with creativity for a very, very long time. My imagination has never failed me. I don't always, I can write some really crappy songs. So I know y'all have heard some of them.
Yeah. We could all write a lot of crappy songs.
Yeah, got to write a bunch of the crappy ones before you find a good.
See, and that was the problem with the music business during the 80s and 90s, is that we all had record deals that you had to make a record every 18 months. That was your record deal. And that was too rapid, You would make a record, and then you'd go out and support it, and then you'd have like 2 weeks off, and the record company's calling going, "You owe us an album." It's like, I don't have any written, I haven't written any songs. well, you better start writing. So it wasn't really the best way to get the best thing out of the artist. It was the best way for them to make money, but it wasn't the best way for the artist. So even at, rock and roll or folk or whatever you want to call it, even at its top of its game, we weren't getting the best out of people that we could have gotten because none of us were allowed the time that we needed, to make the records properly.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A ton of pressure because you'd go on the road for like months on end to support your new record. And somehow in there, you're supposed to pull a rabbit out of your hat and write your yesterday,
Yeah.
It's like every time. And so it was a lot of pressure. And they just thought, oh, just take the month off and you'll write an album. Well, I have done that once, and I've
done it a bunch of times. I did it so much in the 90s that I just finally the first 10 songs I wrote became the album because I just stopped caring. It was just like, I don't give a shit about this. I don't want to do this. This is not right. I can't be the best that I can be under these circumstances. So, that's what happened. So, the 90s were just wasted for me. I mean, I made about 6 or 7 albums. And there's just, I go back and there's might be one good song on the whole thing. Yeah, it was an accident. But I was under such pressure to write these songs that it was just like, it wasn't fun. Remember when Prince wrote Slave on his face? This is what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. And now we can talk about it openly because the record companies don't operate that way anymore.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to wrap up without talking about John's art because, Carlene, you mentioned different ways of expressing yourself creatively, and some of your wonderful, very haunting paintings are hanging up above the pool here, around the pool. And I want to ask you if your writing, performing, and painting inform each other.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
When you're young and you're a songwriter, unless you're Elvis Costello or Bob Dylan or one of those guys, we all had to learn how to get to our muse. And it took me a long time to get there. So here's the story I've been telling. I was doing a painting, and a voice said, okay, you need to put your paintbrush down, you need to write this down. And my response was, go away. I'm painting. I don't want to write a song right now. Hour goes by, it says, hey, dummy, you better write these words down. They're really good, and you're going to be mad if you don't. I don't want to. Kept painting. So finally, the voice gets the best of me, and I go, okay. So I go over to my phone, and I just hit memo, and I sang Easy Targets from beginning to end. Melody, words, story, everything. In however long the song is, I just sang it into the phone. Shut the phone off, went back to painting. Found the song a couple weeks later and went, when did I write this? Is it too bad? I changed a couple words and Bob's your uncle. That's how songwriting is for me now. I don't sit there and go, I really need to write a song about, Black Lives Matter. It wasn't what I wanted, I didn't want to write. Not that I didn't want to write, but it's just, I didn't have that in mind. But the song presented itself to me. And that's the way you're just open. When I do a painting, I don't walk up, I don't do studies. True art surprises the artist. And if it doesn't surprise the artist, it's damn sure not going to surprise the listener or the viewer. So it's got to surprise me. Oh my God, how did I do that? Like right now, I've been doing a lot of assembling. I know you don't know what that is. Another name for it is collages. But I've been doing a lot of assembling, and they're huge. And they surprise me. It's like, wow, that really fucking works. And it takes, you think painting takes a long time? If you do an assembly properly, it takes forever. Because you just can't, put something up, and that's the problem with collaging. That's why these are assembling. This right here is an assembly. Not a very good one, but I think that's just regular graffiti that they've taken off a door or something. But that is an assembly. You know, if you look at it, it's not weighted properly, but it's still good. Don't get me wrong. But that's an assembly. And how do you make one of those? How does an individual make one of them? That was made by many individuals. But how does one guy make that? And, you know, the things I make are that big. So, you know, it's a surprise. It's always a surprise. And if it's not surprising, if you're forcing something into it, then it's going to be shit. I can tell you it's going to be shit when you do that. Always.
Yeah, when he's pulling teeth and you just can't.
Yeah, it's just shit.
Seems like a good note to end on.
Seems like a good note to end on.
Yeah, it's a nice positive note.
Oh, but what you're saying is art should be surprising. That is a positive.
Yeah, art should always be surprising. And if it's not surprising, then it's not any good. You know, when I was a young guy and I was writing songs and I had to write this song this way and it had to be this way and, oh, it took a wrong turn in that line and they were terrible. Now I don't even think about it. It's just like, you know, Black Lives Matter and whoever played like they did. You know, it's just I didn't even think about it. Just somebody sent it to me. I looked up and said, thanks. You know, and then I went on with my day.
And that's how we did Indigo Sunset.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's like I had this format kind of thing, but it had really come from my heart and everything, but there was something missing, and I knew that I needed to fix it. And John just kind of waltzes in and goes this, and I go, but that's not going to fit. And he goes, just do it. And I did, and it came out great.
And it worked.
Perfect.
Follow your muse.
Yeah.
Follow
No.
me. Yeah, that's right. Now there's a little head and a little voice in all our heads, and generally knows what it's talking about. Not always, but sometimes.
We're not going to go out and write songs like either of you, I don't think. But thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, John, Carlene, Elysa. Thank you so much. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you to Macintosh and all of our partners. Have a good night, everyone. Sad Clowns and Hillbillies available now.
Thank
Make
you.
sure you get it. And see John and Carlene on tour this summer.